What's going on, everyone? Sid Gordon here, Core Medical Podcast. And today we have a gentleman who is the type of dude that just people are attracted to. He showed up to the Core Medical event on like a 4-day notice of me speaking with him through Vince Vargas, the man, and cleared a schedule, got there, and I could tell right away when we met each other that this dude was going to hopefully take me in as a friend. And he did. And here he is today. Ben, dude, thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the compliment, saying that people are attracted to me. My wife certainly is, but I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, like you said, it was short notice, right? I had been a client of course for like almost 5 years at that point, but found out that we had mutual friends, and then Vince, of course, introduced us, and then found my way at your veteran appreciation event. Is it third annual or fourth? Third annual event.
Yeah.
And I had heard about it the previous year, had no idea how big it was, and then came down there, of course, saw familiar faces, and then had an opportunity to meet the man behind the brand. So it was good.
So it was crazy. I didn't tell you this, but Vince is like, I try to really pay attention to suggestion, and Vince like calls me like a month before the event. He's like, dude, this guy Ben, who's like over in Tampa, is the fucking real deal, bro. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, well, what's up? He's like, you need to reach out to him. So I put you on my whiteboard, right? And it was like, maybe it was like 10 days before the event. And I'm like, fuck, I got to call Ben. And then I hit you up, and, you know, Vince doesn't typically steer me in a bad direction. He's brought great relationships to the table, hence this one. So thanks. Dude, I always start this thing off pretty much like the same way. I just high level childhood, like where you grew up, kind of what you did, and like what your passions were when you were a kid and family and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll start from the top. I grew up outside of a suburb in Tampa, Florida. So Florida kid, Florida native. There's not a lot of that going around.
No, it's like a unicorn.
Yeah, right. So you don't see.
Not for this generation. Now there's going to be a lot of Florida.
Yeah, now there's going to be a lot of Florida natives, but at the time,
not our age. Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty unique. A son of Florida. But I lived in a couple, like, I guess you'd say like lower middle class kind of like neighborhoods. A place called Sefner. Which anybody who lives in Tampa is like, Sefner. It's a great place to get methamphetamine now.
Noted.
Yeah. But both my parents were educators. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old, and I was raised primarily by my mother. My dad wasn't around a ton, and when he was, it usually wasn't like a great deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got a good relationship with him now. No hard feelings, nothing like that. Was raised pretty much by my mom, this single mother household. And it was just like me and my sister. My mom, worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and was also going to school to get her master's. And later on, I think she finally got her PhD when I was still in college. So like around like 2011, she finally got her PhD. So she was in her 60s when she got her PhD finally. And she's now a adjunct professor at Florida Southern University. If anybody asks like, who's your hero? I never say like, somebody that plays sports or whatever. I'm always like, it's my mom, because I realize now looking back, particularly as a parent, that she sacrificed quite a bit in order to raise me and my sister. Really sacrificed everything. Like had no personal life, no, like hobbies or interests of our own. It's like we were hobbies, we were interests. And we were like kind of poor, but like I never knew the difference. Like we were weirdly going to scratch and dent stores. She was like, sewing Halloween costumes together for me. But like I always, we always had a TV. I never went hungry. I always had a Nintendo. I didn't have any damn games for it. You know what I mean? But like I never knew. I didn't
beat Zelda 90 times.
Yeah. I didn't realize, that I didn't have it as good as other people until later on in life. And I would like have sleepovers at friends' houses. And I was like, yo, you guys why do you have so much soda in your fridge? Like this kind of stuff. But, but like as a kid, growing up in the 80s, 90s, single mom. I mean, I had a key to my house when I was 8 years old, was kind of doing my own thing and kind of embraced that type of lifestyle, like a sua sponte kind of lifestyle as a young kid, and then moving on into my teenage years. When I was in high school, I was a ne'er-do-well. I was smart. All my teachers will tell you that. but got terrible grades. Didn't have interest in like sports or really anything else.
Really?
No, not at all. Like, listen, like I know,
Really weird.
Yeah, I know you probably are like, I bet you were an athlete. I know I probably looked like I was very athletic. I, in fact, was not. I mean, like back, and I'll tell you about what it was like when I first joined the military, like what my athleticism was like when I first joined.
Tom Brady?
No, yeah, I look like Tom Brady.
Yeah, I was gonna say speed agility wise.
Yeah, man, I take my shirt off. Back then, I looked like a fat 9-year-old. I mean,
really?
it was disgusting.
Oh man, we need some before and after pictures. For
Oh
this
my
kid.
God, if you see like my high school senior picture or pictures of me when I was in like middle school, you'd lose your damn mind. But didn't really was kind of aimless and directionless in school. Sort of a punk rock kid, but kind of hung out with a little bit of everybody. And I did get into a fair amount of trouble. Nothing terrible. I wasn't involved in like gross acts of violence or selling drugs or anything.
Then.
But yeah,
Then.
Yeah, then.
Yeah.
Then unsanctioned acts of violence.
Okay, there you go.
But was kind of just into criminal mischief. Got in quite a bit of trouble when I was in school through some high school pranks. They put a DA on me and a few detectives, and I was like in real trouble. Like I was in serious trouble over some high school pranks. And I had like worked construction over the summer, a couple summers to like save up for a car and stuff like this. And I had like weird knowledge of how to like manipulate, municipal structures, sewage, this kind of stuff, and like leverage that to cause damage at my high school. With a couple of kids, got in a lot of trouble.
That's probably why they said you were so smart.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit of a planner, but the other two kids that were involved didn't get in much trouble. One kid, his dad was a 1-star general in the military at that time. The other kid's dad was like a retired sheriff, and they just had like money, and like meanwhile, like my mom was a school teacher, and they were like, you're gonna go to jail, dude. You're gonna get charged as an adult. And I was essentially able to plea out in exchange for like joining the military. That was kind of still a thing back then. My mom introduced me to a military recruiter. Once again, mom kind of put me down the right path. And I joined the Army at the age of 17. Now, what's funny is when you joined the military, when you joined at that time, this was in 2000. This was prior to September 11th.
2000.
Yeah, this was not a wartime Army. You know what I mean? Nobody was at war. Nobody was going nuts. There was no huge efforts, good, bad, or indifferent. Just a peacetime army. I think like the last conflict we had been in prior to that was the Persian Gulf, which was like over in like 90 days. Great success.
So here you are thinking,
yeah, I was like, dude,
it'll be 4 years now. I'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, I'll get some college money. I'll get a smart looking haircut, all this kind of stuff. But when you first join, you go to this place called reception. And at the reception is like when they're like issuing your socks and boots, and, making sure that you somehow didn't fly under the radar when you got into the MEP station and like you don't got like rickets or some kind of, gross disability that you were hiding in some way, shape, or form. They give you your glasses, make sure your teeth aren't rotting out of your head. And if they are, maybe they got to go and pull them
This
or
is
whatever.
the Army, correct?
Yeah, this is the Army.
Okay.
But while you're there, they have a physical assessment. You have to run a mile in under 8.5 minutes, 1 mile in under 8.5 minutes. And you had to be able to do a certain number of like push-ups and sit-ups. And I think it was like, you had to be able to do like 25 push-ups and like 40 sit-ups inside of a 2-minute window.
So this is when you're 17. You haven't even graduated high school yet.
I haven't even. Well, I graduated. I swore in when I was still in high school.
Got it.
And then shipped off as soon as I graduated.
And then you had to stay in training till you were 18 till you knew what would happen from there.
Well, so by the time I finally actually shipped out, I was 18.
Okay.
I'd been 18 for a few months.
But you didn't know even shipping out was going to even happen because it was a quiet time.
Yeah, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm at MEPS, or I'm at reception at basic training, and I barely ran my mile in under 8.5 minutes. I threw up and passed out after I did. So like it took like if I ran a mile in under 8.5 minutes at that point in time in my life, I would throw up and pass out. I only did 23 push-ups, but they were just like, you'll be fine. You're going to basic. And I think I did like right at 40 sit-ups and then like literally hit muscle failure. So like literally.
I feel like you could do all three of those things now in under 8 minutes.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like literally I would do the whole thing. I could go run the mile and then do the 25 push-ups and 40 sit-ups. And probably, you're right, I probably could do it. Yeah. It'd be a stretch. It'd be tough.
Yeah,
I'd be.
a 650 mile, 750 mile. You got a minute and a half to do the other stuff.
It'd have to be fast work when I got done with the mile.
It'd have to be fast work, exactly.
I wouldn't be sitting around.
You have the fast counter.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like, hold on, I got to send this text.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd get right to work. But yeah, and that was the start of my military career. I had very humble beginnings in the military. I started out as a 31 uniform, which I think is now like a 25 papa, the alphanumeric designator for the military occupational skill. But I was like a signal support system specialist, worked on radios. And of course, like the year was 2000, I had no idea what was like over the horizon. I didn't know that September 11th was getting ready to happen. Didn't know that subsequently, I would find myself involved in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And then of course, didn't know that I would be working really hard towards, a military career that would eventually lead me to, special operations. And then of course also spent time as an infantry officer after I got my commissioner, after I had a chance to go to school for a little bit. So
interesting. My father bounced when I was 15. My mother was same, worked her ass off, but even before that, my father was very distant, never around. And she worked 2 jobs, a school teacher, then would do aftercare for kids at like their houses and stuff.
Yep.
And my father was a professional scam artist. So we'd have these peaks and valleys of money growing up. He would fake the ownership of raw land and sell them to people.
Yeah.
So one year we'd have like a house in the mountains, and the next year we'd be like back in the house with my grandmother,
Yeah.
So it's like constant peak and valley. But that feeling, you don't ever forget that feeling of like having and losing. And the only time that I've felt that way in my adult life, Ben, was when I got divorced, and it cost me every penny I had to not make her my business partner.
Yeah.
Which was okay. We had a beautiful daughter together. I get that, but before I had, and then it was taken away, and I said to myself, you know what? I'm never going to put myself in a position doing things the right way to where I'm not in a business that's like residual, to where I don't have to worry about, the mortgage business, not residual.
Yeah.
Core medical, residual. I get to build relationships. Your relationships, I help you, you help me by, passing people on. It's a constant flow. Well, turns out that my mother was like during the entire time just like sacrificing so much to give me enough to just be happy,
Yeah.
and we talked a lot about being dads last night, and like I had a hard time with my dad, but I don't want to be the same dad that my dad was.
Yeah. And like, I think about that a lot. And what's interesting is you said you had a lot of ups and downs. Listen, like after my parents got divorced, I don't think I had a ton of ups and downs, and like, listen, I'm not saying, there was a lot.
That's why divorce isn't the end of the world sometimes.
Yeah, it's not. And like, listen, like it wasn't like terrible. Like I didn't have some Prince of Tides shit happening in my household or anything like super crazy. There was for sure like, some of my first memories are my parents arguing, and so I just knew. I was like, and that was kind of like my baseline. I was like, damn, I was like, adult relationships that are romantic can be fraught with what looks like volatility. And I just kind of grew up with that mindset.
That's pretty dope right there. Yeah, I'll take that.
And that's what I thought. And that's a big reason I didn't get married until I was like almost 42 years old, is because like at a young age, I was like, adult romantic relationships seem volatile.
Yeah.
That's because that's what I knew. But I will say this: like after my parents were divorced, even though I didn't have a ton, like mom and I were like at scratch and dent stores. Like I was going to the Dollar Theater to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like 4 months after it had been released. Like this kind of stuff. But I will say this: like my mom provided like consistency for me. She provided me with as much attention as what was humanly possible for her. Same for my sister. And I think like, even though I didn't have a lot, we weren't like, upper middle class or wealthy or anything like this. My mom provided me with a lot of consistency, and she gave me opportunities for sure. And like, listen, like rich kids that have great educations and, dual family incomes, all this kind of stuff, they have significant opportunities. I think my mom set me up for success and as best as she was able. I
mean, consistency, bro. Like that's a big thing. Like I would definitely say you definitely might have had some hiccups younger, but you definitely picked up that consistency later in life because you're dialed in. Especially, you know, the best part for me is like I get to go meet, you know, a new patient that, you know, I say it all the time. The only people I surround myself with are people that I do business with and people that I love. And sometimes those two people mesh together, and I have someone that I'm doing business with and I love, and that's like the best relationship ever, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I get to meet guys like Vince and Nick Kay and Mel, and like now you and this guy Luke Kennedy, who was just on, who was like fucking a savage on this podcast. Like, I love him to death.
Yeah.
And I've only met him through here. And the cool part is that like every single person, especially in the military career, has that consistency in their life.
Yeah.
Like they're scheduled. Like I can tell you right now what all 5 of those people are doing right now. Like they do the same thing consistently every day. They're in the same place. They're calling me at the same time. It's like it's a weird thing, dude. But I'm very similar, but I'm not military. I have my routine, you know?
Yeah. And I think like, it's funny you should say that because like you know, my wife and I, we were describing our life to, you know, like whenever you talk externally about the life that you have, you know, like, I mean, when I was kind of like, I can't remember who it was, but I was like kind of unpacking what a week looks like for me. And every day kind of looks the same for me in most cases, you know what I mean? And me and my wife and my son, we have a real Spartiate lifestyle. We do the same things kind of day in and day out. But like, I think also from the outside looking in, like if somebody were to like talk to me, it was like, hey, like, what's your week look like? And I was like, oh, you know, well, you know, most days, you know, and I get up when the sun rises or when my rooster starts crowing or when my son wakes me up or when my wife wakes me up. No alarms, if I can avoid it. You know what I mean?
He's like Hulk Hogan downtown Tampa with turkeys and with chickens.
I do. We got
roosters. Just like when he had the show on the show, the neighbors were like complaining about the roosters.
Listen,
and shit.
I got one neighbor that's we've been pretty good. I've got one neighbor that's been complaining about my chickens. His name's Bentley. I think he's a handyman and he's pissed off. But we put like they have a collar that you can stick on them that it essentially diminishes their ability to be as loud.
Is that through electricity?
No electricity. I want to make it clear. I'm not abusing the rooster. But like it's like a collar that keeps them from like taking like this huge breath and then crowing.
Like a choke collar.
Yeah, and we put it on. Yeah, I didn't want to call it a choke collar because I'm afraid somebody's going to get my ass. PETA's going to come down on me hard with the hammer. But it is a choke collar. But I mean, I'm not in there like putting him in a rear naked when he crows or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Not to say that I wouldn't. Roosters are mean as shit. I don't know if you've ever.
The only thing they're good for is stew.
God, brother, yeah, they're not good eating either.
Yeah.
But this is the thing though. They if you have chickens, those chickens will either try and escape or predators will get at them unless you just have one ornery ass rooster in there.
If you have a gangster.
Yeah, he's got to be in there kind of controlling things. But yeah, like I tell people about my life. I'm like, I got my chickens. I train jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 times a week. I train CrossFit a couple times a week. I'm running, you know, I've got these businesses that I focus on. My wife's a yoga teacher trainer and, you know, also is a corporate recruiter. You know, and I guess like when I zoom out and people, you actually say it out loud, it sounds like I have this like really exciting life. They're like, damn, man, you're doing it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like, it's, you know, to a degree it's Groundhog Day, but I like it. I like how my life is. I like my structure. I like that it's Spartiate. I like that I focus on business and personal and professional improvement with great frequency. I like that I have animals, even though I'm a mile outside of a big ass city.
Yeah.
I like that my child can go in there and like knows knows what it means to participate in animal husbandry or get eggs and have chores, you know?
Exactly.
I think all that's like important. And you can have that. I don't got to go live in a van or move out to Montana to have that shit. I can have it in Tampa. Smaller scale. If I had it my way, I'd have some goats and stuff too, but I think that's a bridge too far. I think for sure the city is I'll get fined or something.
Yeah, the goat's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, hard telling not knowing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I get them, stick them out in the yard and see how it all goes down.
So the one thing too, I'm going to back up and talk about the military stuff, but the one thing while we're on this topic is the one thing that I really appreciate, and my brother-in-law, you know, John Bernthal, he has a really good podcast, great podcast. Nick Kay was on it, Mel was on it, Jason Red was on it, Cody was on it,
Yep.
Rocco was on it, you know. And
I've seen them all. I've seen them all.
So I'm surprised you didn't put two and two together this morning in the sauna, but no,
I didn't know that.
You're super absorbent.
Yeah, I just didn't catch the familial relationship. I was like, it glossed over, and I was like, oh, and when I put all the pieces together.
Yeah. So what my brother-in-law told me after, because he watches these podcasts, and he said to me, you know what, Sid, you know what the common thing in your podcast is you have people on that aren't afraid to celebrate their success, right? And when I think about it, I'm like, holy shit, he's fucking right. And what he means by that is there's a lot of guys that are successful and they're like, I'm humble about it, right? Or I don't want to talk about my success because people are going to ask me for something.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, I say kind of like, fuck that guy, because you're going to grow old rich with no friends.
Yeah.
When you don't want to help others. Humility is great, but the thing is that there are a lot of people, as you're going to hear through this podcast, that have gone through similar issues as you, maybe not as intense, but our own trauma is our own trauma. And without hearing how successful you've become and the great things that you've done and your consistency and your being a dad, like those people don't have another avenue. So that's like a big theme on here. It's great to hear. Like last night you were talking about your success and what you figured out and how you've learned things. You've been self-taught with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I think that's a very important characteristic of a man.
Yeah. And I think a lot about that, right? And I think a lot about like what it means to be a good man. You know what I mean? And
some people can take it as bragging, but I think another good man takes it as like, wow, this guy really is put together well and can help others.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have benchmarks in your life, things that you can measure against. I think I think back in the day we had a lot of, like, there were just rites of passage. There were like these barriers to entry that you had to pass through as you became an adult woman or an adult man. And I mean, and like, listen, I'm not out here saying that like, we should stop eating brownies and we should go back to wearing bison skin and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, like back in the day, if you wanted to be considered a man, like, you had to go on a hunt and kill something. And like, listen, it was inherently dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Jesus, if I have an ornery dog, get set loose in the car with me, I'll get injured. Imagine trying to like take down a large prey animal or something like that. But then later on, it meant becoming a father. And then after becoming a father, it meant being able to successfully raise a son, teach him the things that you would learn so that he can go off and do all these things. And I think like we lack a lot of rites of passage as like men in these modern ages, right? Like we live in very comfortable times, like very comfortable times. Like, dude, I can go out the door right now and go get, an artisanal coffee that some joker is just going to make for me.
Right next door.
Yeah, and he's going to put art, and he's going to put art on it, and then like probably put some lavender or some spice that back in the day people went to war over. If I could go back in time right now, you know what I would show him? I wouldn't show him my iPhone, bro. I'd show him my spice cabinet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be like, check out all the turmeric I got up in here. He's like, oh my God, my cousin died in Morocco for that shit. You know what I mean? But like for real.
It's a real.
Yeah, I also bring them the iPhone. I think that'd be an incredible thing to show them. But there was all these things all these hardships that we had to pass through in order to become adult men or adult women. And I think a lot of that is missing. So I think it's important to provide yourself, like to pressure check yourself. And I think sometimes that means taking on hard things, hard tasks. Sometimes it means, taking the leap into entrepreneurship. Maybe it just means that you just, you go into the gym and you make yourself uncomfortable 45 minutes to an hour. Maybe it means being a good ass father, spending 90 minutes a day, really focusing in on that. Listen, maybe you just need to go to a Spartan race and get muddy, and have somebody hand you, a piece of treasure at the end and tell you did a good job. I'm for all of the above if it makes you better. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think,
challenge yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think people should be doing it. You know what I mean? And I think like if you aren't challenging yourself with great regularity as an adult man, or however it is that you identify, you're not frequently challenging yourself. Like you're probably having problems. You're probably not having a good time. You know what I mean?
No, that's those are all things that a man a lot of men go through life without even thinking about all of the above.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a 9 to 5. I go to work, I come home. I maybe spend 30 minutes in the gym. Maybe I don't. I sit in front of the television. I play with my kids, and I repeat the process. Saturdays and Sundays, I rake the leaves and then basically watch football all day, and that's it. And for me, like these guys don't have social media and they don't watch my YouTube except for one, the John Morris, who's coming down here. But my best friends group with 8 dudes. I still love them to death. I'm not talking shit, but I can go back home and tell you exactly what bar they're in at 5 o'clock every single day.
Yeah.
They've never left the state of Massachusetts for more than like 2 days to explore the world. You know what I mean? Like, I invite them to come down here and spend time. It's just like, it's too difficult. And most of them are single. They're not experiencing life. They're not bringing anything new to the table. And with that, I think being stagnant in life is like, I can't imagine, dude, if I didn't get up this morning and didn't do that training session with you. If I decided just to get up at like 8, eat my breakfast, just go to the office. Like if I missed that little experience this morning, which I've never had, I've never trained with before. We haven't really hung out. Like, just as easy, I could have been like, all right, I'm going to meet you at the fucking podcast studio at 1 o'clock, Ben. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not scared of getting involved in new relationships. Like I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think without challenging yourself, relationship building is really hard too.
It is. And it's interesting because probably some of the most honest stuff that we were saying to each other, you know, and I was like prefacing statements with like, hey man, between us girls, you know what I mean? And it was done over a flat bench, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like I don't think that people are having the same kind of conversations at the bar back in Massachusetts. Maybe.
No, especially like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. You know?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So yeah, dude, we're on the same page there 100%.
Yeah.
So back up, I gotta get this story on here. So Ben, last night, you know, I had no idea the amount of time, the amount of energy, and the amount of sacrifice that he put into the U.S. military and the Army and the United States. And like last night, I was like blown away. Like I was lying in bed talking to Jax. I was like, holy fuck, dude. Like that dude was like, he's only talked to me about like just business stuff. And then I got to hear about like his career in the military. And I like to talk about emotion and thought process and change and desire. And I was wondering if you'd share the story about like your first combat mission that you talked about last night as a.
Yeah. So I'll kind of break it down. Right. And I'll kind of tell you about like my first like 2 deployments, or where I ended up in Iraq the first 2 times. And that was essentially the catalyst for me joining the Special Forces.
So before that, I just want to say one thing. So, which I knew before, a lot of people thought, and you expressed to me last night, that a lot of these combat missions are like 5 months of just getting blown up and exploded, and that's really not the case.
No,
like, Cody Alford has had that experience.
Yeah, and like, I think, and like Cody Alford, and by the way, he's got such a unique career. He was like the youngest Marine, I think, ever to make E8.
E8 at 27.
Yeah, and like, and this is funny. You know, I've had an opportunity to talk about Cody. Cody, your mouth is your name has been in my mouth. Cody, your name's been in my mouth, man.
Yeah.
But what's great about Cody is I've never heard anybody say anything negative about him. As a matter of fact, people most frequently have something good to volunteer about him when his name comes up, which I think is a huge deal. I know that's not always the case for me, man. I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there that think I'm a flaming asshole. They're not wrong.
They just met you at the wrong time.
Yeah, maybe. Like in that wrong time might have been last week.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah,
you were just born that way.
But but like Cody had a unique experience in that he participated in when they retook Fallujah, which was like, 30 to 60 days of horrific combat, right? And but like that's not the norm. And I've had an opportunity like on I'm the host of the Warrior Rising podcast, and we just launched literally last week. And our first guest was a guy named John Stryker Meyer, who was in the Special Forces and was in a MAC VSOG unit. MAC VSOG, just for those that aren't aware, is like the military applications and skill, something like that. I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head, but it was essentially the United States was waging a secret war across the Vietnam border to try and disrupt the movement of troops and logistics into Vietnam that was being supported by like Cambodia, Laos, this kind of stuff. And crossing the border at that time was a big no-no. And so it was kind of waged in secret. Also had a chance to interview Bill Hawk Albrecht, who was at OP Cape when it was overthrown and was kind of the commander on the ground. These are guys that were Bill Albrecht was in a firefight where he was almost overrun by 5,000 NVA regulars and 5,000 additional field artillery troops. So it's like I'm talking like brigade and division level assets of enemy soldiers, like getting ready to overrun an OP that had like essentially 10 Americans and like 200 South Vietnamese.
How the fuck do you hold it together in that situation?
I don't know. It is and I asked him, because like whenever I think about Vietnam, I'm just like, dude, I've seen Platoon, like that was just craziness 24/7. But Bill was like, no, that was really unique. He was like, what happened was insane. And same thing, like John Stryker Meyer, who's a wild man, was also like, yeah, that was unique. He's like, even when I talked to Bill, he's like, that's crazy. And it was the same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you caught yourself in a firefighter engagement that lasted more than 24 to 48 hours, it was truly unique. I've had entire firefights where the firefight started. First thing I did was go for a radio, because like I could probably talk to an Apache with that thing. There's a 30 millimeter cannon on that. Yeah. And I would really like to see if they could bail me out of whatever kind of tight spot I just got myself into, because I was weirdly wandering around in the wrong place, with guns and shit. But like I spent whole firefights where I was like, my radio's down. And I'm like switching the battery, digging around in my purse or whatever I got, like looking for sundries, get the battery changed. And I'm like, all right, my radio's up, like, oh, what's going on? And everybody's like, yeah, man, it's over. It's over. Everything's over. We're breaking contact, or it's done. And it's that fast. And so I've spent entire firefights where I was just like weirdly fumbling around with a battery.
This is when you were in comms.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I was in communications, whether I liked it or not, my entire military career.
Oh yeah,
it's true. Pretty much like I was either a radio, like a signal support system specialist. I was at 18 Echo when I was in the Special Forces. Spent a small amount of time as an 18. I was bad at radios too. I don't know why they kept on putting me in those positions. I was not good at it. I sucked. I'm here first.
Like big hands and shit.
Yeah, dude, I was terrible at it. I'm not. And like I was like, why do you guys keep on doing this to me? But finally, they made me an 18 Fox, which is like a Special Forces intelligence sergeant, and I did pretty good at that. I was pretty good at that, and then it also lent well to when I would eventually get a commission and become an infantry officer, because they do planning, intelligence, this kind of stuff.
So when your long battle story of like what changed your mindset as being just an infantry Marine that you were talking about with me last night. Like I was in bed last night thinking about you explaining the amount of contact and like how lucky I am to be sitting in this hurricane proof house in Boca Raton, Florida.
So, and I kind of, so I deployed in the initial invasion to Iraq, had a pretty good time. Like, no lie. I had a pretty good time. Initial invasion was crazy. I watched an entire, a civilization like crumble, topple. We destroyed their infrastructure. That new movie about the Civil War, I saw parts of it, and I was like, it looks like they all have electricity, so that's bullshit. There was no, because the first thing that's going to go is like, there's no electricity, all the toilet paper's out, and there's no coffee. So it's like, it really sucks. You know what I mean? Imagine if all three of those.
That would not work for you today.
No, like imagine if all three of those things are gone. Like for real, dog. Like if somebody was like, hey, I'm sorry, we're going to have a civil war, but in order to do it, guys, like there's no power, no running water, no coffee, and no toilet paper. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe the current government's okay. Maybe I'll put up with it for a little bit.
Exactly.
Go ahead and raise the taxes a little bit while you're at it. Shit, I'm good. Because if you take away all those things, life gets really terrible. So, but I was in the initial invasion,
which people should think about on a daily basis.
No shit. Anybody should think about that anytime they start talking shit about civil war. They should think about what's actually at stake. Not to mention, you'd be killing other Americans. And I got news for you. America's the best country on the face of God's green earth. If you want to topple it, destabilize it, or do anything other than enjoy fucking living here, you're crazy as hell. You're crazy as shit. You should be, what you should do? Start a goddamn business and make it better. Pay your taxes, join the military, go thank your garbage man, or, pat a teacher on the back. That's the kind of shit you can do to make America better, not whining about civil war on the fucking internet.
And then the hard part to really think about is there's a lot of dudes that are trained up very aggressively that feel the same way as Ben over here.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with this if you decide to start killing other Americans.
Yeah. And listen, like nobody wants that, dude. I like all Americans for the most part. There's a couple states where I'm kind of like, ugh. But
We'll save those for the next podcast.
Yeah, but yeah. So I went to the initial invasion, operated in the capacity of a 31 uniform. I was a radio guy. Ended up doing a lot of work with the mortars and the scouts. They were like, hey, these guys need radio guys at all times. They were misused during the initial invasion, and I essentially just drove around town all day, like transporting people here and there, which was an amazing opportunity because I got to like be outside the gate all the time and talk to people. It was also a little bit more kinetic than I would have liked. But really like the brunt of the fighting was over by the time I had gotten to Baghdad. And then there was like a large period where there was like no fighting whatsoever and things were really nice. And then an insurgency happened because people got tired of us being there. And then all of a sudden, like towards the end of that first deployment, things started heating up and a lot of guys started getting killed. And they were killed in ways that were gruesome and terrible. And a lot of times when I was outside the gate on patrol, in a vehicular patrol or taking somewhere to and from, I just felt like I was riding around getting ready to get shot at. And a couple of my friends got hurt badly. Several more got killed. And it was roadside bombs, and it was difficult to combat. It was a new type of warfare. And it was like, when I left after the initial invasion, after that first deployment, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I don't think this is going to be over anytime soon. And I wasn't wrong. I was there 6 months later, and I was there 6 months later. And this time I was in a place called Sadr City. And at this point, the insurgency had gone from just like victim initiated stuff like roadside bombs to these guys were, doing near ambushes. They were doing far side ambushes. They were setting up TCPs, having victim-initiated roadside bombs followed up by ambushes, and they were dropping ordnance. They were fucking dropping mortars.
Initiated is basically a bomb vest.
Yeah, well, bomb vest or pressure plate or, initiated with a cell phone, command wire, you name it. I didn't see a lot of VBIDs, although in my first deployment, there was a guy who rolled up with a suicide vest, or it might have been a suicide via vehicle. I didn't see either go off. We were just there in the aftermath. And I do recall that there was a piece of the guy's face, like largely intact, laying on the ground so much that you could see his whole nose and his mustache. And one of my medics, not one of my medics, not like he belonged to me. I was a fucking private basically at the time, so I didn't have shit other than an M249 machine gun.
From Vietnam.
Yeah, and a bunch of batteries. One of the medics like picked it up and was like, "Look, I'm Hannibal Lecter," and I was like, "Dude, we're all gonna have problems with generalized anxiety later on." I was like, "This is bad." But I was like, "But very funny right now, but also very grotesque." But we'll have PTSD later. I'll have nightmares about this.
He picked it up.
Yeah, apologies to my wife. But he picked it up and like held it against his face. I was like, ugh. But yeah, his face just blew clear across the compound in Al Ramadi. But yeah, and when we were in Sadr City, and it was my second time in Iraq, and I remember the place was receiving so much incoming every single day. And I remember one day we essentially spent like the entire day, like sunrise to sundown in bunkers. And when I say bunkers, even our housing was connexes that would have another connex on top filled up halfway with sandbags because so many rounds were landing. I mean, you want to talk about steel rain. I mean, they caught so much incoming. And because and the whole place was in disrepair because nobody wanted to walk around during daylight hours to fix things. So like the bathrooms had like sitting water in them. They were powered with electricity. So guys were getting shocked in the showers. It was just horrible. It was like Mad Max. And
how long were you there?
God, I was there for like 6 months. And I remember, and then I ended up back at a larger like super fob, a place called Camp Taji, which was inside of another huge base. And there was like hot chow, and you could just like walk around in civilian clothes. And I was like, Jesus. I was like, I can't.
That's trauma right there.
It was traumatic. It was traumatic just being able to eat a fucking thing of corn pops uninterrupted in a place that was climate controlled. And like literally the day before, they took like 50 mortar rounds. And I remember when I was in Sadr City, and I think it was called Camp Hope. I think they quit calling it that because it was like not appropriate based on the amount of contact we were receiving. I think it ended up being called.
I don't think any camp should be called Camp Hope.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It was bad. I was like, this is
bad juju.
I was like, this is branded incorrectly. Bad branding. We took like 50 rounds incoming in one day. They ended up dropping large ordnance. Like I think it was like a 120 equivalent. So it was like a 110 millimeter round. It had a flechette in it, which is like a spike on the end of the round. I don't know what the functional purposes of it are, other than it's scary as shit. But it staked a female to the ground. Like it hit her, and the stake like drove through her. Or so wild. Like they were using airburst munitions. It was insane. And I remember I was like, dude, I'm sick of this. I am sick of this bullshit.
Because you're not engaging.
We weren't. And I was like, I don't know what they were doing. Like QRF would like spend about 30 minutes just trying to put their shit on and get out the gate. And by the time that happened, those guys were long gone. They had like welded a mortar tube to the back of a Toyota Hilux, which by the way is kick-ass. Toyota Hiluxes are the best. And then they just drove off. And so it was like,
But you wouldn't change your position at that time?
I mean, like we were dug in, like this is where we all lived. It's just like what it was, right? And also like this was like, man, this is like '04. So guys weren't ready to deal with asymmetric threats. We were training like
jungle warfare.
Yeah, it's a platoon against another platoon or whatever, right? They were training for conventional operations. So people weren't nimble in that way. Like, and if you were in conventional forces, you were just getting your asses handed to you.
Yeah, because like CQB then versus CQB now is very, very different.
Oh my God, it's light years ahead, right? And but I did back then. I did see these guys. I saw these guys that didn't take 30 minutes to get out the gate. And they looked like they were always about it. And while everybody else looked kind of scatterbrained and worn out and jacked up, the homies were walking around in weird uniforms, had mustaches, and cool weapons, and it seemed like they did not seem like they were perturbed. They seemed like they were having a pretty comfy time. And when shit broke out, they would roll out the gate immediately and go after those guys. And it didn't matter if they were chasing them down on four-wheelers, vehicles, dirt bikes, whatever. These were Green Berets. These were dudes in the Special Forces. And I remember seeing that, and I remember being hunkered down and feeling pathetic and useless and vulnerable, even though like I was like supposed to be out there handing it to them. And like I'm hunkered down in a bunker all day long while we're getting our asses handed to us from mortars. And I was like, this is bullshit. And I was like, those guys, they got it going on. It seems like they got the ticket. And I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, and I'd always, every young man in the military, I think probably talks that shit at some point. I want to be in the Special Forces. I want to be a Ranger. I want to be a Navy SEAL. But I remember talking to my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, yo, man. And I mean, I didn't tell her about all the shit that was happening, but I was just like, I was like, I'm about sick of this. I was like, I think I'm going to try and be I think I'm going to try and be a Green Beret. And no joke, I started training while I was there. So like at night, I'd be running with a vest on. I started not caring about doing bicep curls and started caring about functional fitness, started rucking. And when I went home, I started training. And 6 months after I'd gotten home, I was at Special Forces Assessment Selection, got selected, and then attended
first round through.
Yeah, and I had a pretty okay time at selection.
You're 6'3", 230.
I wasn't at the time. I lost some weight while I was there too. And I mean, I had a couple scares while I was at selection, a couple things that didn't go exactly my way. But I was just like kind of always in the top 20, never first, never last, never in the back half, always in the top half. And I kind of went mostly unnoticed, and I got selected.
So the big thing I've heard a lot of leaders in the military tell me, I don't want the guy in first place bragging. I don't want the last guy that can't hold his own and at least support the guy beside him. I want the guy right in the middle. That's a team player.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot in your community.
They call it the gray man. You want to be the gray man.
Yep.
You want to be the guy who's kind of unnoticed. And I was largely unnoticed in Special Forces Selection and Assessment, SFAS. Probably not as much in the Special Forces qualification course. The SFAS is only like 3.5 weeks at the time. The Special Forces qualification course took a full year. It takes a lot longer for most kids. And so obviously word got around, and I was a bit of a loudmouth and was known for that. But performed for the most part, and I was like kind of near do well. Like, oh God, here comes Ben. But like in a pinch, I was always there to carry the extra weight. And I could be counted on, I think, when it mattered for the most part. And I think that made a difference. And I was, like I said, same thing in the Special Forces qualification course. I was never the best. I wasn't honor grad. I wasn't, the people that were like, this guy's doing it. But everybody was like, they were like, I think the general consensus is like, I wouldn't mind having you on my team for sure. You know?
So then the career blossomed pretty aggressive from there, a bunch of deployments and
Yeah, it did. I went
we
back to Iraq immediately. As soon as I got out of the Special Forces qualification course, I was deployed back to Iraq again, this time in Mosul. Had an opportunity, and I got everything I wanted. I got everything I wanted. I got everything I wanted. I got everything I asked for, right? Like I had spent a lot of time getting my ass handed to me downrange, watching my friends get fucked up, you know, feeling like I was just walking around waiting for somebody to take a shot at me. And we flipped the script hard on them in that deployment. We were doing nighttime raids all the time. I was blown in their doors, and like I was up in their bedroom while they were still like wiping the sleep out of their eyes. And I'm telling you, it was never a good time for any of them. You know what I'm saying? It's never a good time for any of them. And I did. I got everything I wanted. I was blown indoors with explosives. I was landing in a helicopter, coming to fuck you up. You know what I'm saying? And I did all the things. But you know what's interesting, and you know, between us girls, the same way that I felt where I was walking around waiting to get shot at, or sometimes I was just like, I felt like I would spend sometimes in firefights like the whole time like trying to switch out a battery or something like that. I sort of felt the same way when I was in the Special Forces too, man. Like you never listen, combat does one thing and one thing only. It makes you feel like a coward. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you endure, what act of bravery. You could get a fucking Medal of Honor. And I bet you that guy still feels like a coward despite what everybody is telling him, despite all reason, you know?
just because what they've seen.
Yeah, and the homie he's got an award celebrating the worst fucking day of his life. You know what I mean? I've got awards for killing people, and I'm pretty certain some of them didn't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? But they gave me an award and gave me a pat on my back, you know? Yeah. And that's the breaks. That's the breaks. But I had a great career in the Special Forces. And if I could go back and change anything to include the bad shit I did, I wouldn't change any of it. Hear me now and know that my words are true. I wouldn't change shit. I would go back and do the same heinous stuff. I would still, you know, I would do it all again because it was what was necessary at the time. And I'm standing here today.
And actually, man, like if you think about a childhood, a real troubled kid, myself included, Mel Chancey included, it groomed them to be the man that he is today.
Yeah.
And I think also like a lot of that stuff, also people don't understand from being there, but people understand from your actions, and you get what you get from Ben Bunn. Like you know you're gonna pull your weight, right?
Yeah.
And when shit falls short, it typically isn't because of you.
Well, maybe sometimes, you know, maybe sometimes.
In the business world, if shit's falling short because of you based on the last 18 hours, I'd bet against that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying so. But yeah, I loved it. I had an opportunity to get great training when I was in the Special Forces. Went to like super cool shooting schools and learned how to blow indoors and shoot sniper rifles and do CQB and, you know, how to perform, you know, first aid and help people with trauma. But
how much of that, all that knowledge, which I feel like is a lot, especially with the way you analyze things, the way you break down situations, how much of that have you carried over into the business world?
This is funny because we talk about this a lot at the nonprofit where I'm the deputy executive director of Warrior Rising, and what they talk about is, and what they try and instill in veterans is that the things that you learned as a veteran that while you were in the military have direct crossover into entrepreneurship and business. 100%. And I think, look, like Green Berets are the entrepreneurs of the military. They're given less and expected to do more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They have one of the broadest mission sets in the entire military. And that gives them the ability to apply their skills in almost any situations, whether it's hostage rescue, foreign internal defense, unconventional warfare. Maybe it's just civil affairs. Maybe you're just digging a well. But the fact of the matter is I can ask this guy to go kick in a door and kill somebody one day, and the next day I can ask him to go over there and make friends with everybody and help dig a well, and he best be able to do both. And he best be able to do both well. And I think there's no type of individual better suited to be an entrepreneur than somebody that has this broad application and skill sets. But I think one of the most important things that I learned in the Special Forces, one of the biggest things is relationship building, making sure that you can build strong relationships with indigenous forces, which isn't always as easy as it looks. But more importantly, you're working on small teams where you know everything about the person and are very dependent upon their ability to perform well for your success and vice versa. And I think, and I don't think I know that now, that there's no better skill than being able to build strong relationships and to be able to build strong teams that are where there's interdependencies. It's great if you can stand on your own, right? You want to travel fast, go alone, but you want to go far, travel with friends. And I think if you have the ability to build a relationship, my good friend Casey Maxted, he's amazing at this. He's probably one of the best Green Berets I've ever met. And it's because he's so fantastic at relationship building. Fantastic guy. He's the owner of Cold Zero Spirits. But
so with that being so diversified in the military, for me, brings to mind, like, I can run my company, but you know, I also walk into the bathroom and there's like a piece of toilet paper on the ground. I don't tell someone to pick it up. I pick it up.
yeah,
Because I'm a big fan of leading by example.
Yeah.
Right? And somebody who probably left that toilet paper on the ground, that piece of toilet paper that they didn't use on the ground, left it there before me, saw me walk in and clean it up, and was like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. You know?
So at my gym, so I own a gym, Cigar City CrossFit, owned it for 8 years. A lot of times it's not super clear what my position is in the organization because I don't coach classes anymore, really. And there's not necessarily an opportunity for any, I mean, what the hell does an owner of a gym even do? Like, you know, cut payroll, like pay utilities bills, you know, manage subtenants.
Manage relationships.
Yeah, so like nobody's really, so, but the athlete base never really is paying attention. There's a girl there, her name's Donna, she's wild. But she was talking to my wife, and she's been going to this gym for probably like 4 years. She was like, does he like own the gym or something?
Oh my God.
My wife was like, correct, he does. But it's funny because when people ask me, they're like, what do you do? They're like, oh, what do you do at the gym? Like when they're like, people that are like,
I'm the janitor.
I tell everybody I'm the nighttime janitor. And I have a shirt that says nighttime janitor that I got made special.
How many people, I wonder, really think that to be true? That's so funny.
I have another one that just says intern. I'll wear one that says intern.
You just fucking with people.
Yeah, I just have a bunch of different shirts that say wild stuff on the back. But I got a couple that one says no autographs, one says Hefe. That's a bunch of I wear a bunch of clown ass shirts, but it's fun. But yeah, but I say nighttime janitor, but I will tell you, I'm not afraid to pick up a mop. I'm not afraid to empty a trash can.
Can't be.
Nope, I don't have no problem doing it.
So we talked a lot about, you know, being business owners. You're just not a owner of a gym. You know, you're super successful in 4 or 5 other arenas. Done some really interesting stuff with consulting and partnerships with pretty big companies in diversified areas. Right.
Yep.
Relationship building, definitely. If I had to pick out one thing, that'd probably be my pick. I'm pretty good at analyzing people's best avenue, and that's probably where I'd probably put you there. Like, you could probably put Ben in a room with anybody, and he's gonna make friends. He proved that at the event. It was like, he's like, these two sniper kids in sniper school, bro. I'm going to hang out with these cats, bro.
I forgot about those guys. They were so great, man.
They were like, I was like, hey, dude, do you want to chat? He's like, no, I'm taking these guys. We're shooting the shit about sniper school. And now knowing your background, that was probably a really great time for them.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah, and it's like you like to impact, and I think there's impacting with thought of gain, and there's just impacting because you just like to build relationships, and you know, unfortunately, business, there has to be a little bit of both, right? But at that event, you know, you were awesome with that. So we were talking last night, man. And it's like, you know, how my whole life, you know, growing up, I've just worked my fucking ass off. Like, the first mortgage company I walked into, I looked at the owner and I was like, who's your top producer here? And they pointed at Jason Elsner. And I was like, I want to sit next to him. I sat down next to him, and he'd leave at 5 and I'd stay till 7. He'd come in at 10, I'd come in at 7. I just outworked him. He was way smarter than me. Way smarter than me, but never, after the first month, never touched me. And I just learned like hard work was super important. Then I realized that you just can't work hard. You have to be a little bit more methodical in situations because mistakes are made when you're not paying attention. Yeah. Right. And really develop from that point moving forward, and still work my fucking ass off. Like, right. So like, I feel like a real man needs to work hard often, and not give up, and like not be like, oh, you know, I'm going to take a day off here just to kind of chill out. Like, that's unacceptable to me. Unless it's your vacation time, you should deserve it. But waking up one day and just not being on point, dude, doesn't warrant taking a day off to me. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough. It's tough.
I want to.
Yeah, listen, look, I want to be.
I would rather go to the beach with you today and just chill, dude.
Look, we could have gone day drinking.
Yeah.
We could have gone day drinking. We weren't. We were on calls. I got a whole sheet of booger notes, that I'm gonna have to like transcribe as soon as I get home. Like I'm not gonna feel right inside until I get home and put everything that's on that piece of paper on digital notes until I get an email looping people in until I know what I want. I want fidelity on everything that was said out loud. And I feel I'm empathetic to people who are like, dude, I just couldn't get out of bed today and make it happen. But I'm also like, I'm empathetic to that, but also fuck that. Yeah. I don't understand it. That's not how I operate. And I'm going to tell you the harder and more terrible things. We talked about this. If the worst things are going for me personally and professionally, the harder I work. And it's funny, I was talking to my mom about it, who's like my hero and my best friend. And she was like, and I told her, I was like, I went through some real tough times this past year, both personally and professionally. And 2023, brutal year. But I remember I told my mom, I was like, when things are getting really rough, and we were commiserating, we're like, things are rough right now. I was like, yeah. And she's like, how are you handling it? I was like, I'm working harder than I've ever worked. And she was like, I see that. And she's like, and I see that you do that. And
it's only temporary.
It's only
and if you sit in it and like just kind of float through it, that's the worst thing that you can do.
Why would you do that? Look, I'm not telling you. I know there's these guys out there that are always like, you got to take massive action. Change your whole life. Throw out all your cereal. I don't know, but or whatever.
Don't throw my fucking cereal away.
Yeah, don't throw away those. My Cheerios are delicious. But I think there is something to be said for like, look, if I used to tell, this is an old CQB saying, right? If you find yourself doing nothing, try and do that quickly, which means go find work. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like we're inside a house trying to get in a gunfight. You know what I mean? Like, go do something. You know what I'm saying? Mark a door, go find your buddy, put your hand on his shoulder, and then go through the next door. Don't just stand here. You know what I mean? This is not a time to be standing around. And I'm not saying you got to treat life like you're clearing a goddamn building. That's insane. That's not what I'm advocating for here. But there is something to be said that if you find yourself not doing anything at all, maybe do that quickly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Look, take a knee, take a breather, have a nap, go to the beach, drink the vodka drink, do whatever you need to do. But dude, just like strap up and go back to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we without getting too deep. I mean, we shared our frustrations with like being business owners. Oof. and watching other people go about life and not having that drive and that energy, and how for me, like, I hate when I see somebody who I know has it and they're just like like fucking takes them 10 minutes to get from their desk a foot away from the bathroom to the bathroom. No energy. That doesn't exist in my world anymore. Yeah. Like you walk around like that at Core Medical, it's fucking self-cleansing. You're getting tapped on the shoulder. I'm saying, get the fuck out of here.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. But like in other businesses that I've seen, it's just like, dude, like you're not even paying attention to your surroundings. Like you're not even living in the moment because you're so fucking like not even, you have no fucks given for life.
Yeah.
Like, and like, there's no like drive and energy. And for me, like you said before, that's unacceptable behavior for me. Like, I feel like people, no matter what it is, have to have something to live for. It's not that 9 to 5. It's not the football game on a Sunday. It's something for like them to be better.
Yeah.
And I think finding those people are difficult, dude.
It is. And I think there's something to be said for like finding those people who already have that in place. Because more than likely, if they're already doing that,
they're business owners.
Yeah, they're business owners. They're like, hey, you should come work for me. They're like, that sounds lame. I'm going to go help make your dream come true.
Exactly.
I think I might actually try and go make my own come true. But I think there is something to be said for taking somebody that has potential and maybe they don't realize their own potential. I think a lot of times people don't realize our own potential. Maybe even me and you sometimes, right? Maybe we don't even get it, right? But I think there's something to be said for finding somebody that's got potential and drawing that out of them. And sometimes, sometimes they just need to be put down that path, I guess. And like, I'll tell you, if there's one thing that I'm most proud of doing as a business owner, it's realizing the potential in people and like helping them realize that potential and helping make them more successful. Man, if I can, and that's not always been the case. I haven't taken, you probably know as well as I do, you can't get them all. You can't be the catcher in the rye. Mm-hmm. You're not going to save everybody from charging off the cliff. But if you can scoop up a couple and help people. And we were talking about this last night. I will give almost anybody 15 to 20 minutes of my time to talk through whatever issue they're having and give them my advice if they're asking for it.
Yeah,
if they're soliciting me
you
for
can't
it.
want it more for them.
Yeah, but like I can give you the advice and I can tell you what I would do, but like at the end of the day, you're the person that's got to go do it, you know? And that's probably how I like manage my time now is better. As I think before I would tell them and then I would actually hold their hand through it. I think I'm in a space now where there's still people close to me that I will continue to hold their hand no matter what, because I love them and I care about them.
Yeah,
and I see in them what they might not see in themselves. But for the most part, though, I'll show somebody the right way. I'm like, this is the path, my friend. You know?
Well, the other side of it too is like, you know, we're similar with that, and when a person comes from a different working atmosphere and then they come and work for you and they're just used to being able to like get there, collect a check, do the very minimum, and then you have a business owner who expects like a good worker, you know, they've already been setting this tone of just like, hey, whatever, you know, I'm just going to come here and do whatever. And, you know, like for me, I definitely stay away from that hire, right? Like that's not like someone I'm like, yeah, come along. You've really just coasted through life. My thing is like, I'll tell you right now, like, dude, I have fucking Dave Black who spent freaking like he really had a hard come up, dude, like a real hard come up. He's in charge of my onboarding department. Mike Arrow, hard come up. Like it wasn't crazy difficult, but wasn't easy. Nick Kachina, hard come up. But they all freaking, dude, like I said last night, those motherfuckers would clean my garage out in August without asking me a question because like I'll give to them anything that they want. And, you know, to your business owners out there, instead of maybe looking at the person who on Indeed is the most fucking qualified, maybe go out and find someone who you feel like you can groom and maybe just needs that one opportunity that wouldn't get it anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's and that's a piece of advice I probably haven't even been following myself. And when you were talking about it, I think when you were talking about every single person that you've hired recently, you said they either all had a military background or a background in manual labor.
No, a military, manual labor, team sports.
Team sports, that's right. Like the trifecta.
The trifecta. Yeah. Well, the military, for the last 3 hires, one of them, Travis, fucking stud, absolute stud.
Oh, he's a maniac.
And, you know, Brandon Blair, pro hockey, stud. Mike Arrow, black belt in jits, stud. Nick Kachina, kickboxer, stud. Like all of them, they all did something by themselves. And if you think about it, really, the jits guys are great because that's not a team sport.
No.
That's you up against one other person with no one there to like block for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, which you understand, you're a big jits guy.
Yeah. I mean, I say big jits guy. I am an adult green belt in jiu-jitsu. 42-year-old man.
Brandon Blair, enforcer playing hockey.
Yeah.
That was, his job was to fight constantly. And you get guys like that like had no idea that they were going to be working for a core medical group, helping people get better, save people's lives legitimately.
Yeah.
People, it sounds crazy. That's really what we do with a lot of veterans. And we change people's lives in a lot of other directions, you know, across the board. And we all make good money. Like those are the guys, like that's the direction kind of like I've kind of bred the company and look for moving forward. You know?
Yeah. And it's interesting because like when you said that and you kind of imparted that last night, I was like, I'm probably going to involve a similar trifecta into my like decision-making filter for new hires. Cause I got a process for all new hires. I got it, you know, at the organization where I'm working at now, the veteran nonprofit, for sure. I have a process at my gym and, you know, I always have references, you know, and I take a look at their resume. There's an intern process that gives me usually an opportunity to see what's going on. But I think there's something to be said for that and looking at the background and, you know, there's just something to be said for individuals that have like participated in team sports, you know, have worked a job. If somebody's mowed a lawn or cleaned a table before for a living, you know, that's different. If somebody,
Mike Arrow, man.
Yeah. If somebody's never washed a dish in exchange for money, you know, it's like if somebody's washed a dish in exchange for money, I'm like,
you know, they have humility.
Yeah.
And you know, they really needed the money and they have some gratitude because they were doing some shit they didn't want to do for money.
Yeah. Which, by the way, was like my last job that I had before I joined the military was I bust tables. And it was an amazing time. I had the best time of my life.
Yeah, I mean,
it was fantastic.
So like the other cool side of it too is like, you know, a lot of guys that I hire, I have this other really cool technique. Like, so I'll find this dude who's like a stud, like Travis, for instance, right? I'll be like, hey, dude, let's all go out to dinner, but bro, bring some of your boys with you. I never get to meet your boys. And then like, that's how I got Alex.
Ooh.
So, what I'm saying? Like, I get to like kind of piggyback off of, because I mean, listen, if you hang out with me, you're going to find guys that like to hunt, like to shoot, spend time with their family, and build good relationships and focus on their business.
Yeah.
Right. All my boys are the exact same fucking way.
Yeah.
So like, Travis ain't killing it at work being a fucking douchebag on the weekends.
Yeah. That's so funny because like, they say that you're the average of like the 4 or 5 people that you hang out with most. And it's like if you ask a guy to come hang out and bring a couple of his friends and they're all turds, you're like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, it hasn't worked that way, but I mean, a lot of times, all my staff are leaders in their circles.
Yeah.
I don't even call them staff members. I tell them I work for them because I do. Like, I'm constantly trying to find ways to make them freaking better. And like, I never focus on my own money. I only focus on their money.
Yeah.
That's it. I know if I get them more efficient, increase bandwidth, make their life easier, I don't have to worry about my fucking money.
Yeah.
And like, that's been a big thing. And it's been awesome. But hey, so listen, before we wrap, talk to us about Warrior Rising and anything else that you guys got going on right now, so we can support, because Core is going to support as much as humanly possible Ben Bunn and anything that he's doing. And Warrior is podcast is fucking sick, you guys. So you guys should definitely be tuning into that. Yeah.
So I started working for Warrior Rising about 2.5 years ago. Started in marketing and then fund development. And now I'm the deputy executive director. It's a veteran nonprofit that specializes in helping veterans start their own businesses, right? They do it first and foremost through self-paced educational modules. They have essentially a program called the Warrior Academy, which teaches people how to build their own business plan, but it uses kind of essentially like the 5-paragraph operations order for building out a military mission, and uses that kind of as the benchmark. Another way of kind of encouraging individuals to leverage their military experience, to excel in business, right? And they start right there through the Warrior Academy. Once they've gotten through that, they have an opportunity to do, continued coaching calls and master classes. This is all free, by the way.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I know, right? And of course, we have some accelerator programs or kind of like masterclass programs that we're doing in coordination with Grand Valley State University, which gives individuals that have gone through the programs additional opportunities to continue to learn a lot more with the help of, collegiate level programs that have produced, outstanding leaders in their own arena. And then, of course, individuals that qualify after they've participated in all programs have opportunities to go to one of our national business showers. We usually have between 3 and 4 per year. Those business showers give veterans an opportunity to fly out, pitch their brands to industry experts, panels of judges that will give them great feedback to improve their business plans. And then, of course, there's a respective winner, second and third place, and each of them receive grants to help fund their business, like getting to the next level. It's a great organization. I think there's a lot of great veteran nonprofits out there focusing on things like health, wellness, suicide prevention, all these things that have been legacy issues. But I am excited to be working with and for and participating with an organization that's essentially trying to take veterans and turn them into the next generation of great American business owners. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And I've really enjoyed working for them. We just launched our podcast, the Warrior Rising podcast. Our first guest was John Stryker-Meyer. And then today, our episode 2 with Bill Hawk Albrecht, another, absolutely phenomenal Vietnam veteran, just dropped today.
That foundation makes me think, deeply, because, our foundation, based on the information that I've run on data from our foundation, understanding suicide prevention inside of the community, the veteran community was a concern for me. I was seeing people dying that were there, that were friends of patients that say, I told them to get the blood work done. They didn't get the blood work done. They freaking died, and they committed suicide, obviously. And my father committed suicide. I know how that is. I know the ripple effect of suicide. I have to explain to my daughter every day that she's not old enough to understand where her grandfather is, because she's 4, right? She's not ready for me to explain that to her. My oldest daughter wishes that she met her grandfather. There's a ripple effect involved, and it's a very tough place to be. And it hurts. people always like, why do you want to help veterans not commit suicide? Well, I was kind of a victim of suicide myself. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not. I don't want anyone to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And I know hormones have a big play in that. But what I was thinking about is that you have a veteran that comes out and they start a business and they're having a hard time. And I've been in business to where I've been depressed and have no place to go. And I'm freaking the fuck out. And I'm wondering how I'm going to feed my oldest son, Jordan, who's 23, and my oldest daughter, Jada, who's 17, when they're 1 and 9 years old.
Yeah.
And to have a resource like that actually is freaking amazing.
Yeah. I tell our executive director, Jason Van Camp, like all the time, I wish this existed when I mean, they did. They were like a year old when I opened my business and I had no idea a resource like that was out there. But I wished I would have had, because like I said, when I first opened my gym, the first business venture, into entrepreneurship that I got involved in, man, talk about scared, depressed. I felt inadequate. I
call it the
stupid.
oh shit phase.
Yeah, it's terrible, right? But I will tell you this. I was purpose driven. I had a mission. I had a purpose when I was starting my own business. It filled up all the hours of my day, and it gave me something to do, and that's turned into something that I'm really proud of. And I think, listen, there's a lot of things that contribute to suicide: low testosterone, abuse of alcohol, drugs. But I think if you can, whether it's stabilizing somebody's hormones, getting them to kick the bottle, or just giving them a mission, purpose in place of what they had, something that
going for a walk.
Yeah, go for a walk.
Go for a walk, dude. How many people out there? And if you have a friend that sits on the sofa all fucking day and you don't engage with them and call them the fuck out, stop calling them your friend, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's my opinion.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Like if I got a buddy who's like goes to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, doing sauna cold plunge, wakes up early, goes on walks with his wife every single day, has got a couple dogs and stuff like that, he's good. I'm not checking on him.
He's not a priority list.
Yeah, I'm not checking on him for shit unless I need somebody to go get a Negroni with on Friday. You know what I mean? But if you got a buddy who's hard to get him out of the house, they're not exercising. Every time you see them, they're eating something crappy. And you got to check on him, man. Hit him up, dude. I had a buddy the other day, checked on me. He was just like, hey, he just sent me a text that just said comms check. And I was like, hell yeah, dude.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. You know what I mean?
So I mean, that's a friend.
God dang. And I hadn't talked to him in like a year and a half, 2 years.
It's a friend.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of existing patients with Core Medical that are entrepreneurs. They're successful business owners. So below this, here we'll have a link to Warrior Rising. You can get with Ben. He's the type of dude that responds to his DMs. If you want to get involved, if you want to sponsor, if you want to help, if you're someone who can come to the table, and if you just want to show up to these events, so they're open for civilians. They can, or not. Some are, some aren't.
So veterans, veterans, and then of course family members of veterans. So spouses, adjacent, all that kind of stuff. Definitely apply. It's like the worst that can happen is we're going to say no. But if you're a veteran, you're absolutely good to go. You can go to the Warrior Rising website, which is just warriorrising.org, or of course you can reach out to us at our Instagram at We Are Warrior Rising, or you can just email programming@warriorrising.org. All of those are great ways to get in contact with us. And to your point, like if somebody DMs me specifically and asks questions about the program, man, I respond to my DMs 100%. Like I respond,
Well, dude, thanks, brother. Listen, man, I feel like I've known you for like 20 years now. After like 18 months, you have a hard time getting rid of me. Just ask Colton.
Yeah.
He's like stuck, dude. I had his the phone number to his deployment phone, dude.
Yeah.
And I was sending him like crazy care packages every month. And he's like, dude, to the whole team. And it was insane. And he gets back and he's like, man, God, I never thought I'd have a civilian friend. But he does, dude, and I appreciate you helping the team out.
Yeah, of course.
Being a fucking leader and being direct on this podcast because it's super helpful, dude. And
100%.
Anything we can ever do to help you, much love, and thanks for supporting Core.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anywhere else?
Yeah, I think that's that's a piece of advice I probably haven't even been following myself. And when you were talking about it, I think when you were talking about every single person that you've hired recently, you said they either all had a military background or a background in manual labor.
No, a military, manual labor, team sports.
Team sports, that's right.
Yep.
Like the trifecta.
The trifecta.
Yeah.
Well, the military, for the last 3 hires, one of them, Travis, fucking stud, absolute stud.
Oh, he's a maniac.
And, you know, Brandon Blair, pro hockey, stud. Mike Arrow, black belt in jits, stud. Nick Acina, kickboxer, stud. Like all of them, they all did something by themselves. And if you think about it, really, the jits guys are great because that's not a team sport.
No.
That's you up against one other person with no one there to like block for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
would you understand? You're a big jits guy.
Yeah, I mean, I say big jits guy. I am an adult green belt in jiu-jitsu. 42-year-old man.
Brandon Blair, enforcer playing hockey.
Yeah.
That was his job, was to fight constantly. And you get guys like that like had no idea that they were going to be working for a core medical group, helping people get better, save people's lives legitimately.
Yeah.
People, it sounds crazy. That's really what we do with a lot of veterans, and we change people's lives in a lot of other directions, you know, across the board. And we all make good money. Like those are the guys, like that's the direction kind of like I've kind of bred the company and look for moving forward. You know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because like when you said that, you kind of imparted that last night, I was like, I'm probably going to involve a similar trifecta into my like decision-making filter for new hires. Cause I got a process for all new hires. I got it, you know, at the organization where I'm working at now, the veteran nonprofit, for sure. I have a process at my gym. And, you know, I always have references, you know, and I take a look at their resume. There's an intern process that gives me usually an opportunity to see what's going on. But I think there's something to be said for that and looking at the background and, you know, there's just something to be said for individuals that have like participated in team sports. You know, I've worked a job. If somebody's mowed a lawn or cleaned a table before for a living, you know, that's different. If somebody,
Mike Arrow, man.
Yeah. If somebody's never washed a dish in exchange for money, you know, it's like if somebody's washed a dish in exchange for money, I'm like,
you know, they have humility.
Yeah.
And you know, they really needed the money and they have some gratitude because they were doing some shit they didn't want to do for money.
Yeah. Which, by the way, was like my last job that I had before I joined the military was I bust tables. And it was an amazing time. I had the best time of my life.
Yeah, I mean,
it was fantastic.
So like the other cool side of it too is like, you know, a lot of guys that I hire, I have this other really cool technique. Like, so I'll find this dude who's like a stud, like Travis, for instance, right? I'll be like, hey, dude, you know, let's all go out to dinner, but bro, bring some of your boys with you. I never get to meet your boys. And then like, you know, that's how I got Alex.
Ooh.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like I get to like kind of piggyback off of, because I mean, listen, if you hang out with me, you're going to find guys that like to hunt, like to shoot, spend time with their family and build good relationships and focus on their business.
Yeah.
Right. All my boys are the exact same fucking way.
Yeah.
So like, you know, Travis ain't killing it at work being a fucking douchebag on the weekends.
Yeah. That's so funny. Cause like, you know, they say that you're the average of like the 4 or 5 people that you hang out with most. And it's like, if you ask a guy to come hang out and bring a couple of his friends and they're all turds, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, it hasn't worked that way, but I mean that a lot of times, you know, all my staff are leaders in their circles.
Yeah.
And they don't, I don't even call them staff members. I tell them I work for them because I do. Like, I'm constantly trying to find ways to make them freaking better. And like, I never focus on my own money. I only focus on their money.
Yeah.
That's it. I know if I get them more efficient, increase bandwidth, make their life easier, I don't have to worry about my fucking money.
Yeah.
And like, that's been a big thing. And it's been awesome. But hey, so listen, before we wrap, talk to us about Warrior Rising and anything else that you guys got going on right now, so we can support, because Core is going to support as much as humanly possible Ben Bunn and anything that he's doing. And Warrior is podcast is fucking sick, you guys. So you guys should definitely be tuning into that.
Yeah. So I started working for Warrior Rising about 2.5 years ago. Started in marketing and then fund development, and now I'm the deputy executive director. It's a veteran nonprofit that specializes in helping veterans start their own businesses, right? They do it first and foremost through self-paced educational modules. They have essentially a program called the Warrior Academy, which teaches people how to build their own business plan, but it uses kind of essentially like the 5-paragraph operations order for building out a military mission, and uses that kind of as the benchmark. Another way of kind of you know, encouraging individuals to leverage their military experience to excel in business, right? And they start right there through the Warrior Academy. Once they've gotten through that, they have an opportunity to do, continued coaching calls and master classes. This is all free, by the way.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I know, right? And of course, we have some accelerator programs or kind of like masterclass programs that we're doing in coordination with Grand Valley State University, which gives individuals that have gone through the programs additional opportunities to continue to learn a lot more with the help of, collegiate level programs that have produced, outstanding leaders in their own arena. And then, of course, individuals that qualify after they've participated in all programs have opportunities to go to one of our national business showers. We usually have between 3 and 4 per year. Those business showers give veterans an opportunity to fly out, pitch their brands to industry experts, panels of judges that will give them great feedback to improve their business plans. And then, of course, there's a respective winner, second and third place, and each of them receive grants to help fund their business, like getting to the next level. It's a great organization. I think there's a lot of great veteran nonprofits out there focusing on things like health, wellness, suicide prevention, all these things that have been legacy issues. But I am excited to be working with and for and participating with an organization that's essentially trying to take veterans and turn them into the next generation of great American business owners. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And I've really enjoyed working for them. We just launched our podcast, the Warrior Rising podcast. Our first guest was John Stryker Meyer. And then today, our episode 2 with Bill Hawk Albrecht, another, absolutely phenomenal Vietnam veteran, just dropped today.
That foundation makes me think, deeply, because, our foundation, based on the information that I've run on data from our foundation, understanding suicide prevention inside of the community, the veteran community was a concern for me. I was seeing people dying that were there, that were friends of patients that say, I told them to get the blood work done. They didn't get the blood work done. They freaking died, and they committed suicide, obviously. And my father committed suicide. I know how that is. I know the ripple effect of suicide. I have to explain to my daughter every day that she's not old enough to understand where her grandfather is, because she's 4, right? She's not ready for me to explain that to her. My oldest daughter wishes that she met her grandfather. There's a ripple effect involved, and it's a very tough place to be. And it hurts. People always like, why do you want to help veterans not commit suicide? Well, I was kind of a victim of suicide myself. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not. I don't want anyone to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And I know hormones have a big play in that. But what I was thinking about is that you have a veteran that comes out and they start a business and they're having a hard time. And I've been in business to where I've been depressed and have no place to go. And I'm freaking the fuck out. And I'm wondering how I'm going to feed my oldest son, Jordan, who's 23, and my oldest daughter, Jade, who's 17, when they're 1 and 9 years old.
Yeah.
And to have a resource like that actually is freaking amazing.
Yeah. I tell our executive director, Jason Van Camp, like all the time, I wish this existed when they did. They were like a year old when I opened my business, and I had no idea a resource like that was out there. But I wished I would have had, because like I said, when I first opened my gym, the first business venture, into entrepreneurship that I got involved in, man, talk about scared, depressed. I felt inadequate. I
call it the
stupid.
oh shit phase.
Yeah, it's terrible, right? But I will tell you this. I was purpose driven. I had a mission. I had a purpose when I was starting my own business. It filled up all the hours of my day, and it gave me something to do. And that's turned into something that I'm really proud of. And I think, listen, there's a lot of things that contribute to suicide: low testosterone, abuse of alcohol, drugs. But I think if you can, whether it's stabilizing somebody's hormones, get them to kick the bottle, or just giving them a mission purpose in place of what they had, something that
going for a walk.
Yeah, go for a walk.
Go for a walk, dude. How many people out there, and if you have a friend that sits on the sofa all fucking day and you don't engage with them and call them the fuck out, stop calling them your friend, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's my opinion.
Yeah, and we talked about this. Like if I got a buddy who's like goes to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, doing sauna cold plunge, wakes up early, goes on walks with his wife every single day, has got a couple dogs and stuff like that, he's good. I'm not checking on him.
He's got a priority list.
Yeah, I'm not checking on him for shit unless I need somebody to go get a Negroni with on Friday. You know what I mean? But if you got a buddy who's hard to get him out of the house, they're not exercising. Every time you see them, they're eating something crappy. And you got to check on him, man. Hit him up, dude. I had a buddy the other day, checked on me. He was just like, hey, he just sent me a text that just said comms check. And I was like, hell yeah, dude.
Oh, that's
And I
great.
was like, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. You know what I mean?
So I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a friend.
God dang. And I hadn't talked to him in like a year and a half, 2 years.
It's a friend.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of existing patients with Core Medical that are entrepreneurs. They're successful business owners. So below this, here we'll have a link to Warrior Rising. You can get with Ben. He's the type of dude that responds to his DMs. If you want to get involved, if you want to sponsor, if you want to help, if you're someone who can come to the table, and if you just want to show up to these events, so they're open for civilians. They can, or not. Some are, some aren't.
So veterans, yeah, veterans, and then of course family members of veterans. So spouses, adjacent, all that kind of stuff. You know, definitely apply. It's like the worst that can happen is we're going to say no. But if you're a veteran, you're absolutely good to go. You can go to the Warrior Rising website, which is just warriorrising.org, or of course you can reach out to us at our Instagram at We Are Warrior Rising, or you can just email programming@warriorrising.org. All of those are great ways to get in contact with us. And to your point, like if somebody DMs me specifically and asks questions about the program, man, I respond to my DMs 100%. Like I respond, you know?
Well, dude, thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I feel like I've known you for like 20 years now. After like 18 months, you have a hard time getting rid of me. Just ask Colton.
Yeah.
He's like stuck, dude. I had his the phone number to his deployment phone, dude.
Yeah.
And I was sending him like crazy care packages like
Yeah.
every month, and he's like, dude, he's like to the whole team, and it was insane. And he gets back and he's like, man, God, I never thought I'd have a civilian friend. But he does, dude, and I appreciate you helping the team out.
Yeah, of course.
Being a fucking leader and you know, being direct on this podcast, because it's super helpful, dude. And
100%.
anything we can ever do to help you, much love, and thanks for supporting Core.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.